With a new year upon us, a whole new batch of games are ready to come out to all compete for that prestigious Game of the Year award. These games include sequels like Dragon Dogma 2, Little Nightmares 3, and Tekken 8, spiritual successors like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, to games that have been known about for quite some time, like Skull and Bones, and new arrivals that have built up hype in the last year like Rise of the Ronin, and even some remakes like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's easy to say that this year has a vast variety of games that, if good, could all try and make a push for Game of the Year. And who knows at this point who will win? What we do know, however, is who has already won in the past. So, let's go over every winner since the Game of the Year awards started being given out, all the way back in 2003, when the ceremony was still called the Spike Game Awards. And, while we're at it, let's say if any games didn't get the love they deserved, and answer the question that you're here to have answered. What games should have won Game of the Year every year since it all started? Starting all the way back in 2003, the nominees were Freedom Fighters, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, SOCOM 2, SSX 3, Star Wars Galaxies and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Tony Hawk's Underground, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, and the winner, Madden NFL 2004. Here's the issue. Tony Hawk's Underground, another nominee for Game of the Year, defeated Madden in the Sports Game of the Year category. So clearly it wasn't the best Game of the Year if it didn't even win its own genre. Now, the only game that year that didn't get a nomination that I genuinely feel deserves some love is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. It was a game that truly spiced things up in the gaming world. The free running in that game is what ended up inspiring classics like Assassin's Creed. But at the end of the day, the winner that year should have been Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. It truly was so unique and special at the time. We hadn't really gotten something like it, and its narrative, voice acting, and playstyle was so well done, it should have been a clear winner. 2004 was the year of sequels, with nominations for Burnout 3 Takedown, Half-Life 2, Halo 2, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, and the winner, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, San Andreas was one of my personal favorites in the franchise, and a deserving winner, but not the one I would have chosen. Now, 3 games that came out that year that didn't get a nomination, but I think we should acknowledge real quick. Red Dead Revolver, the predecessor to the Red Dead Redemption series. The very first Monster Hunter, which has spawned an entire genre of gaming. And the game I would have chosen to win, Fable. Fable was one of a kind in its time. A true choose-your-own-adventure game. In a world where linear storytelling can get stale for some people, a game where your choices not only affected the story, but also your appearance, the way characters interacted with you, and the things you could do, it changed gaming for the better. 2005 was a year that had some heavy hitters, with the nominations including Call of Duty 2, Fear, the original God of War, World of Warcraft, and the winner, Resident Evil 4. Now, while all these nominees were good, or even great in some cases, there were other games that year that were phenomenal, like Guitar Hero, which was the first of its kind and became a cult classic. Shadow of the Colossus, which is still regarded to as one of the greatest of all time. And Kingdom Hearts 2, the second main installment in absolutely one of my favorite franchises. Resident Evil was hands down the right choice. It had one of the most beloved characters of all time, a fully fleshed out story, and was so good that even its remake last year got nominated for Game of the Year. For the first time in Game Awards history, I agree with the winner. Don't worry, it'll happen again. 2006 had a nice mix of games, with the nominees being Gears of War, Guitar Hero 2, Okami, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, and the winner, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Now, I want to quickly just mention 3 games that also came out that year that I think deserve some love. Dead Rising, a wonderful zombie game that made the interesting change of putting a time limit, so to speak, on your playthrough. Bully, a cult classic that is still to this day having people clamoring for a remake. And Saints Row, a game that some consider a knockoff of Grand Theft Auto. but others look at as a beautiful alternative. All of those games were fun, but Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was unequivocally the right choice. It was so much fun for so many reasons, and if it weren't for a future game, it would still be being ported to new systems. It's 2 in a row of me agreeing with the Game Awards. In 2007, the nominations for Game of the Year had an interesting addition. One of the nominees, the Orange Box, wasn't actually a game, but a compilation of games developed by Valve. We had brand new games, Portal and Team Fortress 2, as well as 2004 Game of the Year nominee Half-Life 2 and its 2 standalone expansions. The other nominees that year were Halo 3, Mass Effect, The Legend of Zelda: The Twilight Princess, and the winner, BioShock. While BioShock was absolutely amazing, Portal was one of my favorite games of the year. It took puzzle games to a whole new level, but I don't think it's right for Game of the Year to go to something that wasn't actually a game, but a compilation of games instead. So what game should have won? One that wasn't even nominated. Assassin's Creed released this year, and took everything that Prince of Persia did years ago and expanded on it, while removing all the things wrong. Assassin's Creed was so good that it is still getting new games today, and has grown into one of the most successful franchises of all time. In 2008, 3 of the 5 nominees were part of franchises that had nominations in previous years. The 2 games that brought their franchise to the table for the first time were Fallout 3 and new to the world Little Big Planet, while returning franchises were represented by Gears of War 2, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, and winner, Grand Theft Auto 4. While all of these games were good, some games got left out. Super Smash Bros. Brawl and Dead Space both came out this year, and were arguably the most popular of their respective franchises. Another game that came out this year is also the game I think should have won, Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead was such a popular game that everyone just wanted to hang out with their friends and see if they could make it to the end without losing anyone, which we all know was harder than it sounds. Any gamer during that time either played, watched, or heard about Left 4 Dead, and it deserves the love that I'm giving it now, over 15 years later. 2009 was the year I entered high school, and I had some great games to play my freshman year. Nominees that year included Assassin's Creed 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Left 4 Dead 2, and the winner, Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. It's a lot of 2s. 3 games came out that year that, at the time, weren't at the peak of their popularity. But retroactively, how could we not talk about League of Legends, a game that is still at the top of the competitive scene, Minecraft, which is the best-selling video game of all time, and Demon's Souls, which spawned an entire genre of gaming that is clamored about to this day, Souls-like. While at the time these games weren't appreciated for what they were, one of the nominees was, and deserved to win. Batman Arkham Asylum was absolutely perfect.
Everything, down to the last minute details.
Everything from story, to gameplay, to combat, to graphics for the time. The first of the Arkham series deserved Game of the Year, and I will die on that hill. After 3 consecutive years of me disagreeing with the winner, in 2010, the Game of the Year Awards and I got back on the same page. The nominees this year were Call of Duty Black Ops, which made the famous Zombies mode what it is today, Halo Reach, a prequel to one of the most beloved franchises of all time, Mass Effect 2, which is commonly agreed upon as the best of the series, God of War 3, which concluded Kratos' time in the Greek saga, and winner, Red Dead Redemption. And other great games deserve some love too, like Alan Wake, which was a wonderful psychological thriller, and Heavy Rain, which walked so that games like Detroit Become Human could run. But Red Dead Redemption took open world gaming and soared, and the addition of Undead Nightmare later in the year pushed it even further ahead of the pack. It was thoroughly the best game of the year, and deserves the love it still gets to this day. In 2011, something happened for the first time ever. All of the games nominated for Game of the Year were sequels to games that had been nominated before. Well, sort of. The only nominee that isn't exactly a sequel to a previous nominee is Portal 2. Because Portal 1 wasn't nominated. The compilation it was in was. See why I didn't agree with you being nominated, Orange Box? The other nominees, however, were bona fide sequels to previous runners, with Batman Arkham City, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception all trying to win the award, but ultimately falling to the winner, The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. All those games were amazing in their own right. And even other games that came out that year, like Mortal Kombat 9, were super fun. But Skyrim has withstood the test of time and is now released on 3 different generations of gaming and sells every time. In 2012, games like Assassin's Creed 3, Dishonored, Journey, and Mass Effect 3 were all nominated. But the winner was none other than The Walking Dead, the game. In one of Telltale's greatest stories ever told, it made a game that actually had a limited amount of choices feel like the game that had the most choices ever in many ways. While I don't hate it winning the award, I think the winner should have been Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 was, and is still, generally looked at as an all-time great, and most people would agree that it's the best Borderlands game of all time. While Walking Dead was amazing and had a beautiful story, the absolute wackiness of Borderlands 2 just takes the cake. In 2013, the show was titled VGX, the next generation of the VGAs. And that would actually prove to be very true next year. This year, however, we had quite the list of nominees. BioShock Infinite, Super Mario 3D World, The Last of Us, Tomb Raider, and winner, Grand Theft Auto 5. Honestly, these were the best games of the year, and made total sense as the nominees. And while Grand Theft Auto 5 was a great game, the main reason it remains in such high regard over 10 years later isn't because of its story, but rather because of its online functionality, which at this point is viewed as its own entity. Because of that, the winner should have been The Last of Us. Last of Us was a game that story is still to this day one of the most enjoyable. And just like Grand Theft Auto 5, it has been re-released or remade for future generations and appeared in 3 gens of gaming. It also spawned a sequel that was beautiful, a show that was a critical success, and easily falls in my top 10 games of all time. 2013 was marketed as the next generation of VGAs. That was really the case in 2014, as the show was no longer broadcast on Spike TV and moved to streaming, where it was renamed the Game Awards. This year, the nominees were Bayonetta 2, Dark Souls 2, Hearthstone, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, and winner, Dragon Age Inquisition. Very quickly, I would just like to mention some other games that came out this year that didn't get a nomination. Games like Destiny, Mario Kart 8, The Evil Within, and even Five Nights at Freddy's. With all that being said, the only game I would even argue could have beaten Dragon Age is Mario Kart 8, as it is one of the most loved of the franchise. But that's also the reason I'm not giving it the edge over Dragon Age. Mario Kart has a plethora of iterations that are all generally loved, but never looked at as legendary, whereas Dragon Age Inquisition was untouchable the year it came out. 2015 had so many games that were good, not all of them could make the ballot. Games that didn't make the cut but could and or should have include Undertale, Dying Light, Life is Strange, and Until Dawn, all games that were phenomenal. However, these games did get nominated. Bloodborne, Fallout 4, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, Super Mario Maker, and the winner, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. And honestly, it was the only choice. Geralt's adventures in this game were truly amazing. The gameplay felt seamless, and any ending you achieved felt fulfilling, which is why people are waiting to find out which ending is canon. Spoiler warning, skip to the 2016 timestamp to avoid hearing about the different ways the game could have ended. Did Ciri take the throne? Become a Witcher herself? Or die? Did Geralt retire and settle down with Yennefer? Or Triss? Or neither and continue his Witcher ways? Did the potential death of Ciri result in him going out in a blaze of monster-slaying glory? With Project Polaris being confirmed to not only be the next installment in the Witcher series, but also the start of a new AAA RPG trilogy? People will hopefully get answers soon. Will the new trilogy follow Geralt, Ciri, or a new protagonist altogether? 2016 was filled with a nomination list that included Doom, Inside, Titanfall 2, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, and winner, Overwatch. It was also a year that had some fan favorites like No Man's Sky, Stardew Valley, Tom Clancy's The Division, my main streaming game, Dead by Daylight, #ShirtMySurvivor, and the only mobile game I think ever would have had a chance to win, Pokemon Go. While Overwatch is a great game, to me, the fact that it is purely multiplayer and didn't have a significant amount of variety at the time means it shouldn't have won. The game I think should have won is Titanfall 2. The playstyle of Titanfall 2 was so enjoyable. Its main story was great, and the multiplayer was so fun and different. I still remember playing with my best friend, even though we haven't touched it in years. We still to this day say that we wish they would make a third installment. 2017 was the first time that a Nintendo exclusive won Game of the Year, when nominees Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Players Unknown Battlegrounds, and Super Mario Odyssey all fell short to winner, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. This year was also the year we got games like Cuphead, Fortnite, and a personal favorite, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. With the debuts of PUBG and Fortnite, 2017 is very distinctly known as the Formation Year of Battle Royales. But that doesn't mean VRs were the only choice. Thanks to Horizon Zero Dawn and Breath of the Wild, giving players all the open world they could possibly want. At the end of the day, though, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild was absolutely the rightful winner. While Horizon and Zelda both were open world games, Breath of the Wild brought open world gaming to a pre-existing franchise that already had a massive fan base and gave you the freedom to complete the game's engaging story in nearly any order you saw. 2018 may be the best year in gaming that I've ever seen, with the list of nominees including Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Celeste, Marvel's Spider-Man, Monster Hunter World, Red Dead Redemption 2, and the winner, God of War. This year was so good for gaming that even the amazing Detroit Become Human wasn't able to make it into the nomination list. Among Us also debuted this year, but it didn't really explode into fame until later. While this year was so absolutely stacked, I actually agree with the choice of God of War. The narrative, gameplay, and acting were so good that it was easy to lose yourself in the story, and was such a turn from the previous God of War games that you couldn't help but keep playing, just to see what direction they were taking Kratos in on this journey of personal growth in a whole new mythology. 2019 was the second year in a row where 6 games were nominated instead of 5, which had been a constant number of nominations since 2004 all the way till 2017. This would become the new norm, and up to this point, 6 is still the number of nominees each year. This year, we got nominations for Control, Death Stranding, The Outer Worlds, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and winner, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. This year also featured the release of the most recent installment in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, with Kingdom Hearts 3, a whole 14 years after 2 came out. While Sekiro was great, it's not the game I would have chosen. If I had to choose from the list of nominees, I would have chosen Control, which doesn't get the recognition it deserves and was truly a wonderful game. But I don't have to choose from the nominee list. And because of that, my choice would be Days Gone, which has found its way into maybe my top 10 games of all time. From story to gameplay to a genuine major twist in post-game, Days Gone is a game that likely won't get a sequel, but man does it deserve one. 2020 was the year I became a content creator, and I had some great games to choose from for my streams. Animal Crossing New Horizons, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and winner, The Last of Us Part 2. This year also brought us the follow-up to 2018 Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. It breaks my heart to take this award away from Last of Us Part 2, seeing as the Last of Us franchise is one of my favorites. But from an unbiased perspective, I think the winner probably should have been Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima gave us our first alternative to Assassin's Creed in a long time, and arguably had a better story than Assassin's Creed has had in over 15 years. 2021 was the first year we really felt the effects of the pandemic on the gaming world. A plethora of games that were scheduled for this year ended up having to be pushed back because of the world going into lockdown during their development. That doesn't mean we didn't still end up with some good games though. Nominees that year included Deathloop, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil Village, and the winner, It Takes Two. I absolutely loved It Takes Two, and streamed an entire playthrough with a friend of mine. But that's also the reason I don't think it should have won. It Takes Two heavily relied on having a good friend to play with in order for you to enjoy its mandatory co-op gameplay. That's why my choice for Game of the Year in 2021 is Resident Evil Village. The 8th main installment in the Resident Evil franchise continued with the new direction they took in the previous game, Biohazard, and managed to tell a story that found a way to connect itself back to the stories of the franchise early on. Village is a game that I could easily see myself going back and playing again before a 9th installment releases, whereas I just don't see myself playing It Takes Two again now that I've already beaten it. 2022 had a great list of nominees, including A Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and winner, Elden Ring. Now, my favorite game of the year was God of War Ragnarok. But as much as I loved Ragnarok, there's no denying Elden Ring was the clear winner. It gave everyone that loves the Souls-like genre something to really sink their teeth into, and is a game that is still getting played today. It also had arguably the best co-op functionality of a Souls-like game up to this point, and that was one of its major selling points, and what made it truly stand out in a year that had some other great choices. And that brings us to 2023, the most recent edition of the Game Awards. Nominations last year include Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and the winner, Baldur's Gate 3. Now, all of these games were amazing in their own rights. Baldur's Gate 3 may be the biggest landslide winner in Game of the Year history. There was truly no competition. Baldur's Gate 3 gave casual players a chance to experience something like D&D for the first time, while giving die-hard D&D fans arguably the greatest video game representation of the tabletop classic in history. That's it. That's every year since 2003 when the Game Awards first started. All 21 Game of the Year winners, whether or not I agree with them. 10 of those 21 years, I agree with the game that won. And 6 of the remaining 11, I think it should have just been one of the other nominees. That means that 76% of the time, I think that the proper Game of the Year was at the very least nominated. That also means that over half the time I didn't agree. And 24% of the time, I actually think the winner was a game that didn't even get nominated. Maybe that means the Game Awards doesn't always include the game it should. Maybe it means I have bad takes. Or maybe, just maybe, it just means that the Game of the Year is subjective and different for everyone. Let me know if you agree with me or not. And if not, let me know what years you think I was wrong about and what should have won. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I am Pip. Y'all are the greatest. And when in doubt, we'll see you next time. See ya!